Hello, this is Mesh, and welcome to an in development review. Now it's been a while since I've done one of these reviews, so I'll just quickly recap what the in development review is all about. So it's looking at games in alpha, and in beta, and in Steam Early Access. So I'm pointing out the positive and negative points, but looking more at a future state of the game and the possible potential. But I will still voice my opinions on it in its current state and try and guide you on the question to purchase now, or possibly never, or maybe in the future. So the real goal with these reviews is trying to help the community and the developers work together and proceed forward with the game. So with all that out of the way, let's talk about the game. So this game is called The Challenge, coming to Steam Early Access. It's an adventure exploration game created by Atom Software. So the concept is you're an employee of the Time Bureau. So you go back in history to, investigate situations and stop people, because the world has access to time travel. So you've got a whole bunch of companies going back, being tourism, and people trying to interfere with the past. So these guys are trying to stop that situation, stop tourism, and stop people mucking around with history. Some main points as well, some main features of the title here. So it's an original story from a professional science fiction writer. So that might get quite a few people interested in it, because already I can see that there's many intriguing facets of the game. So it's an interesting quest in different time eras, and I guess one of them which I've seen, which is the Stone Age, it has a maze in there full of danger. Well, not really full, but it has danger in it, and it is good looking on that Unreal Engine 4. So let's talk about the current state of the game and what, if you purchase now, what are you going to get? So the basic story campaign mechanisms are there. You've got access to the initial station, so that's almost it's a tutorial area, and you can learn a bit about the backstory of the characters, and also interact with a few characters there, and that's how you proceed to go back in time to the Stone Age. So the Stone Age, whilst it is complete, there are issues with it, but in essence that area has been finished and you can move on from the area. So we also have a second area to visit, which is the Ancient Egypt, and that's 10% complete. But you can visit it, but there's just not a lot to do there by the look of it, just exploration. Okay, so let's have a brief talk about Early Access and this game. So things that they've mentioned on the Early Access page. So they've already said that this is an ambitious project for them. It's pretty much a one-man team for the most part. They don't go into any more detail about that, so I believe there's probably a writer. I'm not sure if that's the same person that's doing all the development. But so a one-man team doing a game in any game type is a massive effort. So the development team have started this project and realized how big the scale this actually is. So what they're doing is they're putting on early access, trying to get that financial support, because they don't have any investors and the funding is coming from themselves. So the development team themselves are funding this. So that's why they're going to early access. So feature things that they want to implement. An interface update, which I agree with. They're going to work on the gameplay, going to work visually and on the sound, and they're trying to get multiplayer in the future as well. If they get enough money, they'll also look at these things, so more languages, voiceovers, and a VR version as well, which would be, I think a VR version would suit this game. It kind of feels like that's where it wants to head. So my summary so far, we know it's early access, so keep that in mind. I'll go through positive, negative points, and then my suggestions. So starting off positive, it's very atmospheric. It's very creepy. The music kind of fits that as well. The music needs a lot of work, but the music that's in there at the moment adds to the atmospheric world it is. Visually, it's quite nice. There are many times where you're, walking around in the Stone Age, and the sun, there is a day and night cycle. And the sun, sometimes it does weird stuff, but sometimes it looks really good. And there's definitely something there. If they tweak it, I think they can get the day-night cycle working really well with the environment. At the moment, it does look good. It just does some weird stuff every now and again. So visually, very promising. And they need to do a bit of fine-tuning on the shadows as well. Okay, so onto the story. Intriguing at this moment. You've got time travel. We've got possible aliens. We've got, different worlds that you're traveling to. Well, not different worlds, but different time zones. So you're going to the Stone Age, you're going to the ancient Egypt. Who knows where else you're going to? I think I guess I'll talk about that in a second, but the bit of translation issues, but that's already that can be fixed around the story. I mean, you can get a good backstory from the starting zone. You can read letters about people, and that stuff's interesting as well. I like that type of stuff, and I know a lot of people do as well. Some people will probably just completely skip it. They don't want to hear about that, but there is information there. You can read multiple stories between the main character and their partners, and also other characters in that base, what they're doing as well. So there's quite a lot of story in there, but as I said, I think a bit is lost in translation. The overall concept and the idea here of time travel, trying to, it's not a new idea, but it's definitely not, overdone. So for me, it's an interesting concept, and visiting those times in history would be quite cool if they're done right. So now let's talk about the negative points. The game for me is very unoptimized. It needs a lot of work there. You could probably see from the footage in the background, it's quite a lot of performance issues. I'm getting frame rate issues, quite a lot of texture issues. Shadows aren't looking too good. Sometimes they look fine, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they start doing weird shapes on the ground. But yeah, so if they optimize visually, so we get get a better performance, look at the shadows, look at the textures. Some textures are hideous, but some of them are good. So obviously this is a work in progress, so they're obviously going to look at these things. So visually that's probably the main gripes at the moment. And it would be good to get that day and night cycle sorted. There's great potential with that, because at the moment it kind of works and it looks cool, but it would be good to get that really working really well. Translation issues. Now when reading the backstory and a few other places, you can see that I'm thinking it's translation issues, because there's some weird words in weird places, or maybe it's just the text has become corrupted somehow. But my thought would be it's translation. So maybe get someone working on that would be good. That shouldn't be too hard to fix. I would hope. The interface, that needs quite a bit of work. So you press I to load the interface, and you can cycle between. There's letters there. There's your tasks. There's your inventory. There's a map. The map is drawn, looks like by someone really quickly, maybe a child, and I don't know if that was just a temporary, a placeholder, or if that's what they want to do. It would be good to get an interactive map so you can actually track where you're going on the map. But if they want to have a map that's just a picture, maybe draw it so you can actually see what's going on. It does kind of work, but it's a lot of guesswork going on there, so maybe a bit of work on that one would be good. Inventory management would be good to actually get a bit of help with that. There's a lot of inputs as well that I feel that they need to work on, instead of using because when in the inventory, in the whole area there, you need to cycle with the arrows on the keyboard. But it would be good to start using mouse and having buttons there. The more buttons, the better. And it's the same with a lot of things as well. Just the glitchiness here and there. I guess going through the menu system felt a bit clunky. But yeah, so I guess a lot of that comes under optimization and bug fixing, which obviously they'll do. That's pretty much guaranteed, right? That should be the main thing they're always doing. On to the next thing. The music could be a bit more varied. So mixing it up a bit. And animations of the people walking around could be better. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but it definitely could be improved. The animation of the grenades you throw, and just general animations of other stuff as well, that could all be improved. So yeah, polish and bugs. That's probably the negative things that really need to concentrate on. So that's a good list to start with. Now let's go over things that I would like to see, some of my suggestions for things for the developer to maybe think about, because being in early access, the whole point here is to give them suggestions and work with them. So here are my suggestions. Now some of this stuff would have been covered in what I've said already, but I'll just want to, I guess, put my spin on it. So first thing, the game has invisible walls. So you're trying to get to a certain area, you think you can go there, and all of a sudden there's an invisible wall. that is not acceptable anymore, I believe. You need to, I mean, everyone, it takes you out of the immersion of the game. You need to put some environmental item there. Put a cliff there. Put a river there. Something which stops you going that way. Don't put a really steep hill, because that's just annoying, because you start going up the hill, then all of a sudden you hit a wall. But I mean, I guess a hill's better than nothing, but don't do invisible walls. It's not cool. I didn't appreciate that. So for me, putting an environmental thing there, put a big lake so you can't cross it. Put the sea there or something. Big cliffs, rivers. You got many options. That's just off the top of my head. So, think about a way to do, have a boundary, but not invisible walls. Another thing is abilities to distract and incapacitate the enemy. So we have a sound grenade, which I assumed was used to throw it and it would attract the enemy, which it did. So you got cavemen walking around and they kind of walk towards it. So it'd be good to have other options for those. So maybe have an option where you can throw a stone, or maybe make a noise and they would come towards you, and then you can go another way. Maybe a walkie-talkie you could put down, or some sound making device which will go for ages, or maybe even darts which you can put tranquilizer in something which would just add an element of combat there, which isn't lethal. It's not lethal combat. You're not killing them because you don't want to disrupt the timeline, I guess, but something which you could just incapacitate them or distract them. The sound grenades work, but I just think they're a bit crude and they could do with more options. Interactive map. Now I'm kind of torn with this one, because I like an interactive map because it really helps, but on the other hand, it's good to have almost like an old school map. So you actually just have a visual representation of it and you're not moving on that map, because then you have to use the compass. And that's another little game mechanic, which is quite nice, and it's not in a lot of games, because most people just do the interactive map. But yeah, good to use the compass, and adds, I guess, a bit of adventure and orienteering to the game. So yeah, it depends what they want to do with that. But either way, you need to sort out the map. A more detailed map, if you're going to make a static map. Interactive map would be cool, but obviously that's a developer's choice. Making the world more varied. So adding more nature, so adding more different types of trees, adding possible animals walking around. You can hear some animals, but you don't see anything. With the day-night cycle, you could utilize that as well. So having creatures that come out at night, which are very dangerous, creatures that are in the day, which are different and they're also dangerous. Maybe you can see birds flying around. There's many options, a lot of wildlife which was around in those times which you could use. So there's a lot of different options I think they could use there. Maybe that's something they're going to work on, but for me it would be cool to not just have to worry about cavemen and other humans, worry about environmental factors as well. So there is an area in the Stone Age that's the maze. Now, I liked what they were trying to do there, but for me I didn't think it worked. I got lost for a long time and it wasn't enjoyable. I know that it's good to make it difficult, but the traps weren't difficult at all. You could easily navigate through them. It was more that you just didn't know where to go, and everything looks very familiar and there's no hints. So just to add something in there which actually gives you an idea of where you should be going, or maybe even mix it up a bit so it's not so monotonous in there. And that's, I guess I mirror that throughout the whole game as well. Sometimes the game feels very empty. Adding some random things to a game really adds a nice variety and a nice twist, and also in depth. Like Fallout does it very well. You'd be walking through a zone in Fallout, and all of a sudden you'd find something very random and very strange, but it's still interesting. It doesn't have to do a lot. Just, I think this game would really benefit from that. So if you go to some location, and maybe you'd see a campfire that's been burnt out, and it's just embers, and maybe a couple of cavemen dead on the ground, and you can see that there was an animal that attacked them. You don't need to do any more than that. That tells a little story by itself. and it adds something to the area you're in, so it's not just the same trees and bushes. So things like that for me really add a flair to a game, and really add little stories. It doesn't take a lot. Left 4 Dead did it really well. I don't know if you're familiar with that game, but they did it by having little stories on the wall. So just have a little comment by somebody on the wall saying, I've gone to this location, meet you there, something, and it just adds something. You don't need to do a lot, and the same could be done here. Maybe add more cave paintings. Maybe add a cave painting here and here saying a story. It doesn't need a lot to really add that information. So I'll wrap things up here because I've probably gone on long enough about this game. For me, I'm interested to see where it goes. I like the story concept. I think the story's got great potential. Visually, I think it's looking good. Audio needs a lot of work. There's a lot of bugs, a lot of issues. Do I suggest picking this game up now? Probably not. That doesn't mean it's not going to get good in the future. I think this is one to watch out for. If you're interested in this type of game and you want to support them, by all means, I think that's a great thing to do. And you can be of assistance to them. If this the type of story you want to hear about? Is this something you want to be involved with? Maybe you could even try and change the story to something you want to think about. And that's the whole purpose of early access. So if it is, by all means, jump in. But if you're just wanting an adventure game, I don't think there's not enough here yet to really warrant much of a price tag. Purchase with caution. If you're just want an adventure game, I think you could look elsewhere. But if you really like the idea of kind of time travel, aliens, traveling back in time, and you want to be involved with the community and the developers, maybe this is one you want to pick up. But that, for me, is a really niche amount of people. For the most part, I say maybe just wait to see how this one turns out, which is tricky because obviously these guys are asking for money to help support them. That's the whole point here. And that leads me to another issue around the early access in general and the reviews. Normally I would put a review up on this page for this one, but I'm not going to, because I don't think the review system on early access helps anybody, not the community, not the developer, not the purchaser. It's really destructive and it is not helpful. That's for early access. The other Steam, and that's another conversation, but for this one, I'm just going to say, at the moment, maybe keep an eye on it. If you're really, really keen to support these guys, if you want to be involved with that story, with that component, remember it's early access, it's very alpha. So you're going to get bugs, you're going to get issues, there's not a lot of content. But for me, I am excited to see where this game goes. I want to revisit it in the future. But I'll leave this video here. I hope you've gained enough information to know to purchase or not. And I hope you've enjoyed the video. I've enjoyed making the video. So if you liked it, give me a thumbs up. Obviously, thumbs down if you didn't. Leave me some feedback below on your thoughts on this game. Your thoughts on the Steam Early Access review system as well. I want to do another video on that at some point. But yeah, hopefully that'll come soon. So you subscribe for future content from myself. And until next time, cheerio.